that mourn, that he shall be comforted.
Yeah.
And for a call to worship this morning, I want to remind you that the Bible said, blessed are the peacemakers, for he shall inherit the kingdom of God.
Amen.
Shall we bow our heads? Loving Heavenly Father, we just want to give you praise and thanks this morning for your love and your mercy. We ask, oh God, that you would bless the speaker in a special way, and that you would use him, Lord, to carry your message to your people. Bless us all, we pray, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning, boys and girls. And the topic of my story is trouble in prayer. What's the topic? Trouble in prayer. And it goes like this. The little girl's name was Barbara. What's her name? Barbara. Do you know somebody by the name of Barbara? Who? I guess Adrian and Grandma. Barbara was a stubborn little girl. Who thinks? Remember I say a little girl. Who thinks she should always pray first? So one evening, when the children was ready to pray, to go to bed, Barbara asked to pray first. No, said Mother, your brother Freddie is first, and you are second. Why, said Barbara, I was first, and you let Freddie pray first. Freddie is his brother, her brother. Oh, come on, darling. Be a good girl, said Mother. Now let's begin. And she began. Mother began to tell her, gentle Jesus. And she said, boo-hoo. She began to cry. Tears running down her face. She crawled into bed and wet her pillow. Don't cry like that, dear. Then Mother told her, I don't think Jesus likes the way you behave. Do you think Jesus likes the way she behaves? No, because why? She's not listening to her mother, and she's making a quarrel over praying first. Sometimes, even though we have the right, we have to give up our rights to someone else. If Jesus' mother tells her that Jesus does not like the way she behaves. If Jesus was able to hear all you said, but, Mama, why couldn't Jesus hear my prayer? Because there's too much noise. Nobody could make out what you were saying. Then Mother kissed her goodnight and leave the room. Oh, Mother, come back, Mother. If you think Jesus don't hear my prayer, I want to say it over. Was that right? Was that right? Yes. Yes. She wants to pray over because Mother tells her Jesus did not hear her, neither that. That's a very good idea. So Barbara got out of bed, went on her knees once more to pray. This time, there was no crying. She prayed all the way without a break. Amen? That's the way, darling, said Mama. It would have been much better to say it that way the very first time without all that fuss. Nobody fuss to pray. Everybody waits on their turn. Isn't that so? Yes. Barbara said, I promise I will do better, Mama. I am very sorry for my behavior. forgive me. Then she said, Jesus will forgive her. Then she smuggled into bed and went to sleep. Then she smuggled into bed and went to sleep. She slept all the night through after all that. For the boys and girls, when you pray at home with your mother, don't force, just wait. Your turn will come. Isn't that so? Amen. So go and pick up your children's chapel for Jesus loves. Oh, pray. I'm sorry. Who would like to pray?
Father, bless my mom, my dad. Help us to be safe and helpful and nice and kind, learning to each other, to be safe and nice and kind, and take turns in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Heavenly Jesus, help my mom feel better in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Thanks, Jesus, and serve His church, and serve His day. Amen.
Amen. Amen. You may go and collect your children's chapel fund and say thank you.
From the book of Ezra, chapter 4, verses 1 to 5. Ezra, chapter 4, verses 1 to 5. And we will read responsively. I will read first. Now the adversaries of Judah and Benjamin heard that the children of the captivity builded the temple unto the Lord God of Israel.
And they came to Zerubbabel and to the chief of the fathers, and said unto them, Let us deal with you, for we seek your God, as ye do, and we do sacrifice unto him, since the days of
But Zerubbabel and Jeshua and the rest of the chief of the fathers of Israel said unto them, Ye have nothing to do with us to build an house unto our God, but we ourselves together will build unto the Lord God of Israel, as King Cyrus, the king of Persia, hath commanded us.
Then the people of the land became in the hands of the people of Judah, and troubled them in building.
Together, and hired counselors against them, to frustrate their purpose all the days of Cyrus king of Persia, even until the reign of Darius king of Persia.
And the second reading is from the New Testament, 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verses 3 to 8, and we'll also read responsibly. For this is the will of God, even your sanctification, that ye should abstain from fornication.
And everyone of you should know how to possess the vessels in sanctification and honor,
not in the lust of concupiscence, even as Gentiles, that which not God.
that no man go beyond and defraud his brother in any manner, because the Lord is the avenger of all such, as he is also warning you that exercise.
For God hath not called us unto uncleanness, but unto holiness. Together, he therefore that despiseth
Despise not man,
the God words, to his blessing, to his words. Be seated.
To God be the glory. Great things he hath done. So loved he the world that he gave us his Son. We thank God for another day, for life, health, and strength. As we come to talk to our Lord and Savior, let us humble ourselves before our King, for he is our Maker, Sustainer, and Provider. As we read in the Bible, the old pioneers of days go down on their knees in sackcloth and ashes. So let us humble ourselves. Let us kneel before him with thanksgiving. Our loving and gracious Father, great King of heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, we, your children, humbly bow before you this morning to glorify thy name, for thou art worthy to be praised. Thank you for that, Father, for another day. Thank you for life, health, and strength that you have given us. Thank you, dear God, for the opportunity that we can make our calling and election sure. Thank you, dear Father, for dying on the cross for us, that we can come boldly before the throne of grace. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Father God, we come this morning, looking down, dear Father, from on high, that you continue to bless your children. We bring before you, dear God, the medical department, dear Father, as a display, dear Father, what you have told us in your word, that our body is a living sacrifice, and you expect us, dear God, to keep it in such honor. May you grant them the wisdom, the knowledge, and understanding, dear Father, that they may be able to teach us the right way in our health life, dear Father. May you continue to bless the department, dear Father, and those who spend the time in your word. Continue to guide them and keep them faithful. Father, we look down, dear Father, upon those who have lost loved ones. May you, dear God, continue to counsel and console them, dear Father, that all is not lost. That one day, dear Father, when you call us home, we will see our loved one once more. We thank you, dear Father, for the visitors in our midst. Thank you, dear God, for sending them to worship with us. And as they worship with us, dear Father, may their, dear God, hearts be filled, that they may return, dear God, and say that they had a good day with the Lord. May you, dear God, continue to bless each and every one, dear Father. You know our heart's desire. Continue, dear God, to keep us faithful. For those who are sick, dear God, we ask for a healing touch. May you, dear God, give them that comforting spirit. For those who are sad, dear God, we ask, dear Father, that you give them that joy, that oil of joy, that they may never fade along the pilgrim road. For those, dear God, that seek you in all ways, dear Father, we ask, dear God, that you continue to be with us. For the one, dear God, who are about to break the bread of life, dear Father, we ask, dear God, for your Holy Spirit to anoint your manservant, dear God, and let him, dear God, speak thus said the word. Let you be seen and heard, dear Father, and not him. Continue, dear God, to be with us as we go throughout this day, throughout the rest of our life. Wash us under your precious blood, dear Father, that flows from the cross of Calvary, and robe us, dear God, in your righteousness. Keep us faithful until that day that you call us home, that we may enter into your joy. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen.
In the book of, in the First Peter 4:10 and 11 said, tells scholars say each of you should use whatever gift you have to receive, to serve, and as faithful to serve others, as faithful steward of God's grace in its various forms. I believe that this brother, the gift that he has gotten, he decided he would share it with as many people as possible. Now, prior to going to him, there's a chiropractor that most of the chiropractor now, they find out something that you will find out here today, that our spine is the bedrock of the entire health system. So we went, my wife was having some serious situation with her gut, digestion issue. We've gone to every doctor. No doctor could do anything. And finally they told my wife, they said, well, listen, we can't do anything for you. Whenever you have this episode, just check yourself into the emergency room. We've done that, and the insurance bill, whatever insurance cannot pay, our debt was just mounting up. So we went online, we started checking for alternative health because the traditional health was not helping. So then we came across the chiropractor doctor in Xavier, Long Island. We went to see him, and he did help my wife tremendously. But when we got there, just for my wife, just for 6 months of care, we spent $17,000 that we didn't have. It was, but you know, because my wife was getting help, we were pulling the fund from everywhere, every little fund that we had put away. Her help was so important, so we did that. And my wife didn't get complete help, but she got help enough now where she eats some solid food. So when I heard that Dr. Ray was a chiropractor, I said, oh, I know them. I said, we help, but too expensive. But when I went there, and after listening to him, this brother does not try. Number one, he takes insurance, which is a good thing. So when he told us how much it would cost my family and myself, he took our insurance, and whatever the insurance could not pay, he told us he would bring it down. He gave us so much discount, so we ended up paying under $3,000 for a whole year of care. And I must admit to you, since I've been under his care, I've been so energetic, and I love to spread the good word. Amen? So I like to spread the word to everybody so that they would know that this man, in fact, I was reading up on him. You can do the same. I found out that he wanted to sought after chiropractor, holistic doctor in the state of New York. When you go to his practice, you get there, the place is jam-packed. So since I got this good news, part of my job as your pastor is to share with you whatever thing you need to get so that your health can be, you can be in good health. Amen? I have a friend of mine who pastors a church. I won't tell you what the church is. He does a funeral service every Sunday. Every Sunday. I kid you not. And I told myself, I said, I don't want to be that kind of pastor. I want to be the pastor who will pastor people who are alive. Amen. I want to pastor the living. What do you say? Amen. And Dr. Ray Omar will do this. He has his own practice. And I see Andrew brother. I went to the practice. I'm sitting down there, and this beautiful young lady came to me and said, haven't I seen you somewhere before? I said, I don't know. So which church you go to? So we started talking from one to the next. She said, do you go to Staten Island? I said, I'm the pastor. I said, oh, you preach at a funeral in the Bronx. I said, yeah. Then when I saw the husband, I remember who she was, and Andrew's brother. I said, what are you doing here? They are patient there, and I see you here. You gave your word. He is a testimony for what the Dr. Rayman can do. Our praise team will come to us, and after the praise team, the next voice we will hear will be Dr. Ray Omid.
I can search for all eternity, Lord, and find there is none like
Thank you so much for the gift of your children. Pray that you bless wherever little have been given to be used for the furthering of your gospel work in this community. Is our prayer in Jesus' name. That the church say, amen. Amen. Dr. Ray.
Hello, everyone. With you today, a message, a principle that will absolutely change your life. It'll allow you to live the life and health that God promised you. Because, you know, one of the most amazing things is that each of us are designed to be healthy. We're designed to heal. And that if you're in this room and you have certain symptoms or medical conditions, I'm going to be sharing with you what causes the body to break down and how we can correct it. And how we can get you to live your God-given health potential. But before I do that, I wanted to share a little bit about myself so you know who I am and how I came to speaking up here. I was raised in a very medical household, actually. I never knew that when somebody was sick and we just took medicine, we thought that's all you ever needed to do. And as a young child, I remember my dad always coming home from the doctor with a new form of medication. And by the time he was 55, he had 14 different forms of medication. And I felt like the medication was designed to get him healthy. So the interesting thing is I watched my dad go through cancer. Not once, but 3 times. And the first time he got this prostate cancer, he went to the doctor and they gave him chemotherapy and radiation and they told him that it was gone. And then all of a sudden it came back. And as a little child, as I was watching him go through that, something inside of me knew that there had to be more to health than just what he was doing. Because one of the things I came to realize is that if you go to a doctor and every time you go you need more medicine, what does it mean? Are you getting healthier or sicker? Why would you need more? Because you're getting what? So I asked my mom one day, I said, you know, I don't understand, why does Dad keep getting sicker? And she said, he's not sicker. And I said, well, every time he comes, he needs a new drug, which means he's sicker. And she said, I don't know. She said, you should ask the doctor. And so when the cancer came back for the second time, I had the opportunity to go to the oncologist with my dad. And I asked him some very important questions that changed my life. It directed my path. And one of those questions was, what caused the cancer? In other words, why did it come back, Doc? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, what do you mean you don't know? And he said, well, as a medical doctor, he said, our job is not to find the cause of any disease. He said, we don't know what causes high blood pressure, we don't know what causes diabetes, we don't know what causes high cholesterol. He said, our job as a medical doctor is to manage the disease. So he said, as an oncologist, he said, it's my job to treat the cancer, not to find the cause. And then I said to him, well, what do you plan on doing? He said, well, we're going to do the same thing we did the first time. And I said, but isn't there a word for doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result? That's the definition of insanity. And I said to him, I said, well, what are you going to do to help prevent this problem from ever coming back? And he said, well, son, he said, as a medical doctor, it's not my job to help people prevent disease. He said, it's not my job to find the cause of disease, it's not my job to prevent the disease, it's just my job to treat the disease. And I said, but if you don't help them prevent it, isn't it going to come back again? And he said, maybe. He said, but that's not my job. And so I asked him, I said, well, whose job is it? Wow. And he said, you might want to look into something called holistic healthcare. I said, what is that? I never heard of it before. And he said, well, what the holistic healthcare is designed to do is to teach you certain things that you can implement in your life to build your health. Like how to eat right, and how to exercise, and how to hydrate your body, and how to release toxins. And I said to him, I thought that's what you were doing. And he said, absolutely not. He said, a medical doctor's job is not to do any of that stuff. And so I went home that day, and I looked up online, and there was a school in Atlanta, Georgia. It was called Life University. It was the largest school for holistic healthcare. And I knew as I was looking at this stuff online, I realized that this is what I have to do with my life. Because I was trying to decide where to go to graduate school. So I packed my stuff, I moved to Atlanta, Georgia for 4 years. I went to this graduate school, and the focus was on what causes a person to build their health and then maintain their health so that they don't break down, so that they don't need drugs, so that they don't need to go to the emergency room. And also, the most important thing that I learned is that God created us to heal. And I believe a lot of us know that already. But when our body doesn't heal and we don't understand it, we go, well, I need the drug, or I need the pill, or the potion, or the lotion. But what we don't understand is that you are designed to heal, but there are things that can interfere with your healing. And so my job was to remove the interference so that the body would naturally heal again. Now I learned how to do that when I was going to school. But you see, the interesting thing is that while most people, see, to me, knowledge is power, isn't that right? It says in the scripture, for a lack of knowledge, people perish.
Yes, yes.
And when I would go to class, I would sit right in the front row because I didn't go to school to pass a test. I went to school to save my father's life. So I was in the front row learning anything and everything a person would seek. I'd stick around after class and ask questions. But the interesting thing is, like, they had seminars on the weekends and the weeknights. So I went to 650 seminars. Got certified in 50 different techniques like acupuncture, biofeedback, homeopathy, nutrition, herbology, all these different things. But the one premise, the one law that governs health is what I'm going to share with you today. Because you see, what happened is, as my father was going through life not understanding what causes the body to break down, not understanding what causes high blood pressure and diabetes and high cholesterol and digestive issues, his body just kept getting worse because the very thing that was causing everything, nobody was correct. So I graduated school and I moved back to New York with a doctorate degree, and I was all excited because now I had the opportunity to help my dad. I had all the right resources, all the right tools, and as I was moving back to New York, I got news from my mom that my dad was diagnosed with cancer for the 3rd time. Except this time what happened, he had to go to the bathroom for 2 weeks. So they ran all sorts of MRIs and CAT scans, they couldn't find anything. So what they had to do is they literally cut open his stomach with a knife. It was called exploratory surgery. And they found that the cancer that was once in his prostate had spread all over his colon. And at the time, they were giving him 3 weeks to live. And she said to me, she said, you need to come over to the emergency room, your dad's here, and it's really bad news. And so I rushed over to the emergency room, and the oncologist was there, and he said, son, he said, I'm sorry to tell you, but your dad has 3 weeks to live. And he said, there's nothing we can do. And I said, well, if there's nothing you can do to treat his disease, I'd like to focus on getting his body to get healthy. I'd like to focus on building his health. And I said, because I believe and I know that God put inside his body the power to heal of anything. No matter what name the disease is, the body has the ability to heal it. And the doctor looked at me and he said, well, you can do whatever you want, son, but your dad's got 3 weeks to live. And I said, thanks for the vote of confidence, but I'm going to put my faith in God. Amen. See, because when we don't know, when we don't have the right knowledge of what's happening in the body, we put our faith in man. And we misplace our faith. We put our faith in a drug. We put our faith in a doctor. And you see, the thing is, like I learned in school how God created our body to heal and how God gave us the power to heal. And God gave us this power that operates our body, specifically a part of our body called the immune system, that literally makes chemicals to kill cancer that's stronger than chemotherapy. And people say, Dr. Ray, you mean to tell me that the body can make chemicals stronger than chemo? Yes. Did you think that man was going to be more powerful than God? So your body makes these chemicals called interferons and interleukins and tumor necrosis factor. These are chemicals, chemotherapy, that kills cancer cells from the inside out. But the thing is, his body wasn't making any, but nobody found out why. Instead, they just sold him a synthetic version of interferon, which cost $7,000 a shot. So because his body wasn't working right and he didn't know, they were just selling him stuff on the outside. And by the way, they synthetically manufacture interferons because they realize how powerful it is in your body when your body's making it. So they said, let's make it in a laboratory. When people don't make it, we'll just sell it to them. And you see, knowing that, this time was different. See, because knowledge sets you free, doesn't it? Amen. Because for lack of knowledge, people make some crazy mistakes in life. And there are ways that seem right to a man that in the end lead to death. That's what the scripture says. And my dad was on that road. It seemed right to just keep taking medicine and to just keep doing what the doctors are doing and pay no attention to anything else because it seemed nobody told him. And you know, because they didn't tell him, he thought it was unimportant. Isn't that right? You go to a doctor and he tells you don't worry about what you're eating, just take the drugs and you'll be just fine. He tells you that it's unimportant. That you should probably eat right is just something that sometimes may be mentioned, but not really. The important thing is the person take the drugs. And so going through school and learning all this allowed me to understand differently how the body was designed to heal, how it was designed to be healthy. And what I did, and I'm going to share this with you, is we realigned the spine, a specific area of the spine called C1. It's the top bone in the neck. Because when the bone in the spine is out of position, it puts pressure on the spinal cord and it interferes with the way the brain communicates to the body. So we got the pressure off so that God's power from the brain can flow into the body. And I'm going to explain it to you more in detail. But I want to tell you what happened to him. My dad was in the emergency room. He was hooked up to all these IV tubes. And within a period of a week, his blood sugar and his heart rate and his blood pressure started stabilizing. So they were able to move him into a regular hospital bed. 2 weeks later, my dad was getting up and walking around the hospital. Nobody knew why it was that he was getting stronger and healthier. It was very confusing for everyone. So not knowing what to do with him in the hospital, they released him into a rehabilitation center in Glen Cove, Long Island, which is where I used to live. And as I would go in there and check on my dad and clear him up and make sure that God's power was flowing in his body, he kept getting stronger and stronger. After a period of 3 weeks of him being in the rehab center, they didn't know what to do with him there. So they released him to go home for Thanksgiving. My dad was home for Thanksgiving. I remember sitting in the living room and watching him, and he looked healthier in that moment than all those years taking all those drugs. And kind of like God gave me a thought for a second, I realized the reason he looked healthier is because we actually implemented healthy habits. Like that wasn't so hard to figure out. Like he never implemented any healthy habits, and then we did, and he got healthier. But the interesting thing is, my dad would keep going for follow-up exams every 3 months, and the cancer would get smaller and smaller and smaller until 1 year after his diagnosis that he was supposed to be dead. Not only was he alive, but he was cancer-free. And you see, I give all the credit to God. But I also tell people all the time, you know, the important thing to recognize is that God put in your brain an intelligence to operate and heal this body. And so I'm going to make some references to this chart because I'm going to share with you the one law, the one principle that governs health that trumps all other laws and principles. The one law that governs health states the following, that there's a power put inside of you that has the ability to heal you of any disease known to man. As long as it's flowing right, the body will function and heal right. But if it's interfered with, If that power that God put in your brain that's operating this body is interfered with, the body cannot heal, cannot function, and as a result it begins to decay, it dies early, it gets sick, it gets suffering. So what I want to do here today is I want to share with you that principle to deliver you from any sickness and disease, to deliver you from a life of drugs, a life of hospital visits, a life of medical care, and to set you free. And so I'm going to make some references to this chart because this chart explains how God's power is in our body and how it's designed to flow. But when God created you, He put this one organ in the head in charge of everything. And in fact, it's the first part of your body to be developed. 15 days after conception in the mother's womb, this is the first part of the body to be developed. And that name, the name of that part up here is called the what? Brain. Did you know that your brain has God's power to operate the body? Science calls that power, they don't call it God, they call it innate intelligence. And you ask them, what do they mean by innate? They say, oh, you're born with an intelligence to operate everything, to heal everything. And then they say that the body is self-healing. How is it self-healing? A dead body is not self-healing. What's it missing? Life. Also known as innate intelligence or God's power. And that power that God put in your brain, that power called intelligence, is different than educated intelligence. What is educated intelligence? Something you learn in school. Something you pass a test, you have educated intelligence. Thank God your educated intelligence isn't operating your body. But there's some supreme intelligence operating this body. That the supreme intelligence in our brain is controlling and operating and regulating 76 trillion cells in your body. 76 trillion things it's directing and governing and organizing and balancing and adapting to your environment. It's telling your heart how to beat, your lungs how to breathe, your stomach how to digest food. All of that happens without any of our educated brain. So when the body breaks down, I don't want somebody's educated brain telling me what to do. I know that the innate intelligence, that one that has been put there from God, knows more about operating this body than any doctor on the planet. Now, how does innate, or how does life, another name for it, or how does God's power flow into the body? Well, it sends signals in the form of electricity down this main spinal cord, which is like a power line, and then through the nerves. So does it make sense that when your body was first being created, the first organ to be developed is the brain, and the second is an extension of the brain? It goes from the top of your spine down the middle to the bottom. It's called your spinal cord. And the third part are the nerves, which are like wires that come out to each and every part of your body. And by the way, you have 12 miles of nerves. So if anybody ever says you have a lot of nerve, right. But you see, the way it works is really important. Now, here's how it works. In order for your heart to beat, or your lungs to breathe, or your stomach to digest food, the power that God put in your brain, we call that God's power, or life. It's got to send signals in the form of electricity, so it flows down the main spinal cord and through the nerves to each and every part. That is the law, the number one premise, the number one law that governs health is in order for you to be healthy, life has to flow. Right? No exception to that rule. How do you know? Well, let me give you an example. Let's pick the nerve that goes to your heart. Everybody knows about heart health, yes? What if the nerve going to your heart was cut and no more life was getting to the heart? How much eating right would help you? How much exercise is going to help you? Without life getting to the heart, no matter what you do, it won't work. So what is the number one law that trumps all of it? You need life flowing to each part of your body in order for it to work. Why? Because if you cut off the flow of life, no matter what you do for the heart, it won't work. In fact, if you cut off the flow of life to the heart, what's going to happen to the heart? It's going to die. Nothing you're going to do for it. So what we need to do is make sure that life is flowing, because you see what happens is that your spine can shift out of its normal alignment. This is the key word, alignment. And as it shifts out of alignment, it can start to squeeze on a nerve. And if that nerve is being squeezed and the signals are being disrupted, imagine only half of the messages got to the heart. Well, then what's going to happen to the heart? Instead of it functioning right the way God intended it to, it's going to break down. And in the beginning stages, you might have no evidence, but after a period of time, you may get certain symptoms. You may get certain medical conditions, like the heart beating too fast or beating too slow. And if it's beating too fast, they'll give you a drug to make it go less. If it's beating too low, they'll give you a drug to make it go more. But if you ask them, why is it beating too fast or too low? I don't know. If you go to the bathroom too much, they give you a pill to go less. If you go too little, they give you a pill to go more. Isn't that right? But if you ask, like, why am I going too much or too? I don't know. If you got a blood pressure problem that's too high, they're going to give you a pill to bring it down. If it's too low, they're going to bring you a bit up. If your blood sugar is too high, we'll give you a pill to bring it down. If it's too low, we'll give you a pill to bring it up. But if you ask them, why is it high or low? well, because there's an intelligence within me that God put there to keep everything in perfect balance, then why is it out of balance? But because we don't get to the cause, whatever it is that's causing the problem continues to cause other problems. And just like you can have the nerve go in your heart that's choked and disrupting the way God's power, life is flowing to the heart, you can have that happen to your neck, which will cause neck problems. You can have that happen to your back, causing back pain. You can have that happen to your legs or knees, causing arthritis in your knees. And so our job, our number one law that governs health is that life, or God's power, has got to flow freely in order for our body to work. Does that make sense? That's why when God created you, He protected this nerve system with bone. So what protects the brain is the skull, and the spinal cord and nerves are protected by the bones of the spine. So I'm going to share with you what it looks like, a model of it, so it makes sense here. But this is a model of your spine. Now what protects the brain is the skull up here. The base of the skull is up here. The spinal cord is like a main power line. Imagine a power line. And it goes from the top of your spine, it goes right down the middle, all the way down to the bottom. And then out the side you have these nerves, which are like wires that go to each and every part of your body. Make sense so far? So if your spine, the key word again is alignment. When our spine is in alignment, we're in the presence of God's power flowing in our body freely. God's power can flow freely, our body will heal and express health properly. If our spine is out of alignment, can you hear me? If our spine is in alignment, then God's power can flow freely through there. But what happens to the spine is that the bones in the spine can get knocked out of position. And if they knock out of position, if you can see it, they start to choke on a nerve. And if you choke on the nerve, you cut off the expression of God's power coming through there. And so, for example, the bones in your spine can be shifted out of position due to multiple things. Number one is physical trauma. So what's an example of physical trauma to the spine? Car accidents, injuries, falls. So any of those accidents, what happens is you go through the accident, your spine gets knocked out of position and is now choking on the nerve, and God's power can no longer flow properly through that nerve. In addition to car accidents and injuries and falls, we have day-to-day stresses like sitting too long, standing too long, lifting heavy objects, bad posture, sleeping in the wrong position, Facebook, people with their head down all day. All of these physical stresses on your body cause your spine to shift out of place. Normal day-to-day wear and tear will cause your spine to shift out of place. In addition to that, we have stress in our lives, and stress, what happens is our muscles get what? Relaxed or tight? When they get tight, they pull the spine out of place too. So your spine could be significantly misaligned, cutting off the expression of life through there, interfering with the way God's power is getting through. So I often say your spine is like a conduit. A conduit is something that protects the wires in your house. If your spine is in alignment, the conduit is straight, the power can flow through the wires. But if the conduit is bent and there's a blockage on the wiring, electrical flow cannot come through properly. Does that make sense? Now, out of all the bones in the spine, there's one bone that happens to be the most important, and that bone is called C1. I want everybody to remember that. Say it out loud for me. What is it? C1 is the only bone in the neck up here that when it moves out of position, it chokes on the main spinal cord. It cuts off all life coming from the brain into the body. So if that one bone is out of position and it chokes on the main spinal cord, and now none of the power gets through properly, what part of your body is affected? Everything and anything, exactly right. In fact, that top part of your spinal cord, which is located up here, is so important that in science they give it its own name. It's called the brainstem. And I'm going to explain to you exactly what happened with my dad and what happens with most people. But you see, what happens is that when the C1 bone moves out of position, it's going to choke on that area. Now, the brainstem is known to control every vital function, like your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your blood sugar, your immune system, your digestive system, your thyroid, your hormones, your prostate. So let me explain to you what happened with my dad. That bone was knocked out of position maybe 30, 40 years ago. And the first symptom he got, now watch closely, the first symptom he got was high blood pressure. For those of you that know people with high blood pressure, they went to the doctor gave him a beta blocker, and he figured everything was okay. But the blockage here was never corrected. So the blockage remained on the brainstem, and then next year he developed diabetes. How did he get that? Well, because the brainstem also controls your blood sugar. So because it's blocked up, the blood sugar came out of balance. Well, then they gave him metformin for the diabetes, but the blockage was still there, so a year later he ended up with high cholesterol. Why? Because the brainstem also controls your cholesterol level. So because it's blocked up, he's taking these drugs and he's not getting to the root. The next problem he developed was stomach acid problems, because the brainstem controls how much acid your stomach makes. Well, then they gave him Nexium. The next year, the problem that occurred was he had a colon problem because the brainstem controls your entire digestion, so he couldn't go to the bathroom. Well, then they gave him laxatives. Then his immune system shut down. That's what cancer is. Immune system completely compromised because the brainstem controls your immune system. Then the prostate stopped working properly because the brainstem controls the prostate. Then he couldn't sleep properly because the brainstem controls how much melatonin you make. The brainstem also controls, if you don't know what to say, when I say what controls blank, you say brainstem. Every time you're going to be right. Which is why C1 is the most important bone. Does that make sense? So, here I am, I just got out of school, I go over to the emergency room, and what's the first area I'm checking? C1. Happens to be right behind the ears. So I ran my fingers down the left side, I ran my fingers down the right side, I knew the left side was locked up. And when something's locked up, what do we do to it? We unlock it. I was trained with my hands to unlock the area that's stuck. The moment I unlocked it, I now know God's power is now flowing again. Because that C1 bone is going to interfere, it moves out of position, it interferes with the flow of life going above, down. So I unlock it, and now I know God's power is going to do the rest. So I move the bone, God does the healing. I move the bone, God does the healing. The simplicity of that is profound. So then I would go back and check again, because when the bone is used to being out of position for so long, I may unlock it, it's going to lock up again, I'm going to check it. And if it's locked up, what do? Unlock it. What if it's not locked up? I leave it alone. God's at work. God's at work. And the more your body regulates itself within, the less you need on the outside. So when we got the pressure off, what happened to his blood pressure? Went back to normal. What happened to the medication? Gone. But what about the diabetes? Well, the brainstem also regulates your blood sugar. So as we cleared up C1, the brainstem can now regulate his blood sugar better. It controls how much insulin and glucagon and cortisol you make, which all have an effect on your blood sugar. So if you get the pressure off it, God's power can get through, it's going to regulate the blood sugar from within. So what happened to his diabetic medication? Gone. What happened to the cholesterol medication? Gone. Now, did that happen overnight? No. Because the blockage has been there for 50 years. It's not going to get better overnight. It's going to take time and repetition. But you'll always be better off with life or God's power flowing freely.
Yes, amen.
Now, when I speak to a group of scientists, I say you're always better off with pressure off your nerves. Because if you use the word God's power, they get scared a little bit.
Yes.
I don't know why, because they walk around with dollar bills that say God we trust, but for some reason they have an issue saying that word. But you know, the crazy thing is that I came to realize that that innate intelligence that they've been talking about, that operates and heals this body and knows how to run it better than any man in the world, I realized that that's God's power, innate. That's not man's power. It's not something we learn in school. It's something that we've all been born with. So we've all been born with a body, right? And an intelligence to operate it. And that God's power and that amazing innate intelligence that's in here will keep operating and healing your body as long as it's not interfered with. And so what we need to make sure of is that the spine is in alignment so God's power can flow. Now I'm going to share with you a story about a lady who came to my office when I first started practice. I had a practice in Queens, now my practice is in Long Island, and people come from all over. They come from Jersey and Connecticut and Staten Island and Brooklyn. But I had this lady come to me, she was from Woodhaven, Queens, and she had severe knee pain. Her name was Deborah. And Deborah came in, she had severe knee pain. I asked her what happened. She told me that they took an MRI and they found that the bones were on top of each other. There's no cushion. So they're diagnosing her with advanced arthritis was the word they told her. And I said, well, Deborah, did they tell you what is causing the arthritis? Because I know they never find the cause of anything, right? So I said, what are they telling you is causing the arthritis? She said, well, Dr. Ray, in fact, they did. They told me it was my age. I said, your age? She said, yeah. She said, I'm 75. And I said, the doctor told you your age caused your arthritis? She said, yes. Have you guys ever heard this before? So I said, well, tell me where it is, Deborah. She said, it's right here on the left knee. knee. She had a cane. And I said, well, tell me about the right knee. She said, no, Dr. Ray, that one's fine. I said, well, how old's that one? Because, I mean, unless I'm missing something that they're different ages, then I'd understand. But if they're the same age, you can't say it's your age if they're both the same age. So she said, Dr. Ray, you bring up a good point. What do you think it is? I said, come on over here, take a look at this diagram, Deborah. I said, when God created you, he put this one organ in the head called the brain to operate everything inside the brain. There's a magnificent gift called life. As long as life can flow to your knees will regenerate. And I said, but what happens is life sends the signal down the nerves that exit your lower back and the spine and the lower back area. And the same nerves that actually go to your knees also happen to go to the ovaries and uterus, Deborah. And so I said, if you choke off the signals going to the ovaries and uterus, that can cause severe hormonal imbalances. That can cause things like infertility and menstrual pain. And Deborah, for you, that can cause ovarian cysts and uterine fibroids and ovarian cancer and uterine cancer and breast cancer due to a significant hormonal imbalance. And she said, well, Dr. Ray, she said, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, they cut that out years ago. I said, why do they cut it out? She said, well, Dr. Ray, they told me it wasn't working. Did anybody find out why it wasn't working, Deborah? She said, well, they told me it was my age. I said, you keep this up, you're going to run out of parts. I said, you know the same nerve that we're talking about that comes out of your lower back that goes to your knees also goes to your hip? And she said, it's funny you mentioned the hip, because they took an x-ray and they found arthritis in the hip and decay. And I said, you know, Deborah, how about instead of replacing all these parts, we start getting some life going to it? Because you see, the thing that we have to come to realize is that our body may go through degeneration, but it also goes through regeneration. And that's what healing is. And that's God's power that does the regenerating. Not anything on the outside, no drug, no potion, no nutrition. No, nothing on the outside can heal you. And sometimes people think that way. They say, well, Doc, what do you mean? I say, well, if any of that stuff worked, I can go over to the morgue, pull out a dead body, you put it in there, and it'll get up and heal. Because it won't do it. Without life, nothing will heal. Now, don't get me wrong, it's good to have good food. Of course, that's important, right? Because your body, the innate intelligence, life, will take the food you eat and make you new material. That's cool. So we don't want to give our body scrap material because we don't want to make a scrap product, right? If we give our body Twinkies, it'll make you a heart out of a Twinkie. I don't think that's a good idea. I'd rather give it good, nutrient-dense foods, right? But you still need life or intelligence to take the food and make the material. And only God does that. And no man can do that. No man can heal you of anything. It's like, you know, when you start getting real clear and understanding of what we're talking about here, it's like, you know, because what happens is you eat good foods with nutrients like fruits and vegetables, and then your body takes those vitamins and minerals and makes you a new cell, a new product, a new liver, new lung, new heart. How often is it doing that? Every minute of every day. 2.5 million cells in your body being exchanged. Old ones dying off and new ones growing in. She said, Dr. Ray, they told me it can't heal. I said, well, that's because they don't know what to do and they're trying to be the healer instead of letting God do the healing. And so I said to Deborah, I said, I'm going to check where? I'm also going to check this most important area called what? C1. And she said, Dr. Ray, no, it's not my neck, it's my knee. I said, no, Deborah, if C1 is out of position, God's power will never flow past there. And I also noticed that Deborah had high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, so I knew right away it's going to be C1. So we checked it, we ran this technology, I'm going to show you in a minute. It measures all the electrical flow through the nerves to see where the blockages and the interference is so that we could find it, correct it, maintain it. And then what happened is, after a period of time, see, I know it takes about 6 to 7 months to heal up from a knee injury. And she's about 5 months into her care, and she's off her blood sugar, she's off the blood pressure medication, she's off the cholesterol medication. She's making major changes. But she's still got this cane. So now, like 7 months into her care, I see her coming over with a cane, and one day I asked her, I said, Deborah, I said, you know, I know you're getting better because God's power is flowing. I said, you know, how's your knee doing? And she whispers, and she says, Dr. Ray, she says, it's completely fine. I just want to get a ride here. They were taking that Able Ride bus, and you can't get on the bus unless you got some sort of serious disability. She's walking around with a cane just to get on a bus. Advanced arthritis, you know. I've had patients come in my office and they were told that they could never get well. I'll never forget one of my patients, his name was Joe Sweeney, diagnosed with Lou Gehrig's disease. Given up on him by everybody. 55-year-old man. Came in crippled, in a wheelchair. Couldn't even move his fingers open. Had to sleep with a pillow, a little pillow cushion in between his hand, so his hand wasn't crushed. given up on by everybody. They told him that he was going to keep getting worse and worse, and eventually he wouldn't be able to breathe, and he would die a slow death, a very painful and suffering slow death. And I said to him, I said, Joe, the only reason your body's dying is because life isn't getting to it. I said, we're going to check C1. He said, well, Dr. Ray, and I'll never forget, it was one of my first patients, right? He said, Dr. Ray, he said, I've been going to like 80 doctors. He said, you're the only one who's got any hope. How do you have hope when nobody else does? They all told me it's incurable. I said, well, that means medically. They left that word out. And I said, but God doesn't know what's incurable. God heals everything. And I explained to him the science behind what I was telling him so that it's not just some abstract idea, but he can link to it. And he said, Doc, he said, if this is true, he said, I don't understand. Why didn't anyone else teach me this? And I said, because they weren't trained on it. Medical doctors are trained to give medicine. What do you think their training is? It's like going to a shoe store and expecting them to give you soda. Like you go to a medical doctor, they're going to train on medicine. You go to a surgeon, guess what they want to do? Vitamins? Right, surgery, that's what they do. So I said, that's what their training is. And I said, the difference is that nobody ever explained to them, because they've been indoctrinated, but the C1 bone protects the brainstem, which controls your entire immune system. And you're diagnosed with what's called an autoimmune disease. Also known as, here's some other ones, scleroderma, rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. I've taken care of all of these. But you see, I understand one very premise, that the brainstem is going to control your immune system. It's going to control how much of a cell called T helper cells you have. If you have too many Th2 cells, it creates allergies and autoimmune disease. If you don't have enough Th1, it creates cancer. Now I know, if God's power is flowing freely through there, you're going to make the exact amount you need on both of those counts. So I said to Joe, I said, I'm going to correct what happens where? C1, and we're going to let God do the rest and see what happens. Now I watched Joe go from using one of these wheelchairs to coming in with one of these walker things. A couple of months coming in without a walker. I'll never forget the day he came with a big smile on his face. He said, Dr. Ray, they got to rewrite the textbooks. He says, they're wrong. So I can't believe how wrong they are. I never knew. And I said, well, I did. He said, thank God you came here, because you went anywhere else, they would have taught you into what your body couldn't do instead of what it can do. They'd be telling you all the limitations and putting fear in you and telling you to mutilate parts of your body out of you. And in Joe's case, he'd been everywhere. He'd been to Mexico. He tried to go everywhere to get the answer. Well, the answer was right inside. Everybody chasing everything on the outside in, right? But you see, everything that we need comes from our connection to God and letting God's power and presence flow through us. Now, I got to tell you, your spine is the most important structure you have, because when it's in alignment, God's power can get through. And when it's not, it's being interfered with. But you see, we haven't been taught that, have we? We've been taught to take care of our teeth better than our spine. See, most of us know if we don't brush our teeth for 20 years, what's going to happen to it? They're going to rot. But you see, nobody ever thinks, well, I'll just wait till they rot and I'll pray over them. We understand that this is what God gave us. We got to do what with it? Take care of it. And the body is God's temple. This is what God gave you. We have to take care of this body. And the spine is the structure in which God's power can flow through. So we got to take care of that. But we need to know where to go to get that done. And so you see, the interesting thing is that technology is advanced to the point where we can actually measure how well the electrical flow is through the nerves to find out where life is flowing and where it's being interfered with. And I'm going to make some references to this chart because it's right up here. But if you could take a look over here for a second, what I want you to notice is that when life is flowing, in other words, there's nothing interfering with the process, your exam, this is a computerized exam that measures nerve flow. The way that it does it is non-invasive and painless. It's called thermography. It's been around since the 1920s and 30s. To make it real simple, it measures temperature between the left and the right side of the spine. Because in electrical terms, what they found is that when one of the bones is out of position choking on the nerve, it creates friction, which increases electrical temperature. So you can measure temperature change to determine where the nerve is being choked. Does that make sense so far? So if there's no blockage, kind of like with electrical flow through wires, the exam looks like the top one, there's no color. On the other hand, if your exam comes back with color, the color indicates where the nerve is being blocked. And you know, like in a house, you have the circuit box and every circuit goes to a different area? You have circuits in your spine that send nerves to different areas, sending life to different areas of your body. So anyway you see color, there's a blockage, green is a blockage, blue is worse, red is even worse than that. And sometimes we measure the nerve flow and there's like no number to correlate to it, it goes black. If you can't see the bottom exam, I want to explain a couple things to you. Number one, this person has a severe blockage at the most important area, which is which one? C1. Well, what I didn't tell you is that that's a 3-year-old girl. So how does a 3-year-old girl end up with a severe misalignment in her spine? When do you think the first trauma a child or infant is exposed to in their life? According to Harvard Medical Research, 90% of all children born in the hospital will have their spine misaligned at birth. Let me repeat that number. 90% of children born in the hospital will have their spine misaligned at birth. And you know what the most commonly misaligned bone is? C1. Because when the baby's being pulled out of the birthing canal, how do they get the baby out? Is they turn the head 90 degrees and then they pull. How much pressure do they pull on? They pull enough to drag the baby off the table. That's how much tension and torque on the head. 60 to 90 pounds of pressure. Dr. Talbot, and the medical researcher at Harvard, goes on to state that every infant and newborn needs to have their C1 checked by a specialist the moment they're born, because C1 houses the brainstem, which affects the development of the brain and the body, which will alter and interfere with that child's ability to develop to their potential, causing a whole host of problems: ear infections, colic, asthma, allergies, ADHD, learning disability, dyslexia, autism, sleep disorder, social anxiety, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia. How can all that be caused from one thing? Because the brainstem regulates the entire function. And the brainstem regulates all the chemistry in your brain. And when somebody has anxiety or depression, by the way, we call that a chemical what? But nobody tells them what chemical, nor where what's causing it. Instead, they give them a drug to compensate for what they're not making. So if they're not making serotonin, which is necessary to feel good, then they get depression. Well, we just give them Prozac. We give them a drug to compensate for the fact they don't make any GABA, because if you make GABA, you can feel good in your brain, you'll be calm. There's no anxiety. When you don't have GABA, you get anxiety. So then we'll just give them Valium to compensate for the fact they're not making any, but we'll leave the cause, which is why they get worse over time. How do you know people are getting worse? Because they need what? More medication or less medication? More. So somebody taking blood pressure medication, they say, I had a patient named Alfred came in with his friend because his friend was getting care of my office for all the pain he was in and getting well, obviously. God's power flowing lets you heal. And so Alfred came in and he was sitting in the waiting room, and I said, Alfred, I said, you got to get checked. I said, you know, you need to see how well your nerve flow is. And he said, Alfred said to me, he said, I'm fine, Doc. I said, well, how do you know? And he said, well, I just got back from the doctor's office. I said, why'd you go to the doctor? He said, well, I got high blood pressure and diabetes. He said, but you know, I take them drugs for that, so I'm good. I said, you're not good, nowhere close to it. All you're doing is masking the problem, because you have no idea what's causing that. And 100% of the time, it's going to be up here. And if you don't get to the cause of it, this blockage is going to cause another part of your body to shut down, and then another, and then another. And I explained to him this way. I said, if you have a leak in your house, you need to find out where the leak is coming from. You can't just keep patching up where the leaks are and telling me your house is good. But so when he understood it, he said, Doc, he said, but how come my doctor didn't do it? I thought he was going to get to the cause. I said, no, they're not trained to get to the cause. They're trained to manage the disease. And I want you to know that symptoms are a good thing, not a bad thing. We treat symptoms as if they're bad. Symptoms are alarms. What's a symptom? Pain. How would you know what's wrong if you don't have pain, right? It's like you look at the engine, you look at your dashboard on your car and you notice the check engine light is on, so you take it to the mechanic and you think he's going to look underneath the hood. But instead, he looks at where the light is lit up on the dashboard. He goes in his shop. He comes out in his hand. He got a black spray paint. And he just looks over where the light is and sprays over the light. And he says, can you see the light? And you say, no. And he says, well, you're all good. Your car's great now. You're driving out of there going, yep, my car's all good. All of a sudden, it seizes, right? Now, what happened? You call him back and say, my car seized up. He says, you know, it's an old car. That's what we tell people. Oh, you know, this part's just old. You got to get rid of it. Or, you know, your body's just old. Oh, you got these bad genes, right? That's the biggest joke of the year. The way that they put things on genes, right? You know what they really say? God didn't create you right. You're not created right. Sorry. But the truth is that genes are like light switches. See, they've done enough research to find out. See, most doctors won't tell you this, but genes are like light switches. You get to turn them on and off. It's called epigenetics. And you know what they found out? Is that that very same power that operates everything operates your genes. And if you cut off the way it communicates to your genes will never work right. You'll never multiply the right cells, your body won't function right, it won't heal right. Nothing works right without God. Now, I don't know why that message is too complex for people out there to get. I wish they did, though. Because if they got that understanding, and that understanding of a law, that in order for this body to work right, it needs the presence of God flowing to it. It doesn't work on its own. It doesn't work when we try to control it because God's power is not flowing. That's not the answer neither. She's only 2. They gave her a medicine called Pulmicort. It made her hyper. They gave her anti-anxiety pills when she was 2 years old. She'd been suffering with ear infections ever since she was a kid. Then she developed allergies, then the asthma, then the bedwetting. She was on 5 medications when I met her, shackled to a model where she was getting sicker and sicker, losing life, gaining disease. And her mother came in with all these reports and said, do you want to see these? And I said, no. And she said, why not? I said, because none of them are going to find the cause. All they're going to tell you is what part of the body is broken down. An MRI just tells you what part's broken. It doesn't tell you why it's broken. Asthma just tells you your lungs are broken. Not working right. Why is it not working right? If you have the presence of God in you, why isn't it working right? So I said to the mom, I'm going to do an exam. I explained to her that 90% of children are misaligned at birth. I explained to her that as a 1-year-old learns to walk, they fall on average 25 times a day. We explained her playground injuries, athletic sports, bicycles, all these things cause trauma to the spine. And I said, we need to check her. So we took an exam, we pulled it up, and this is what it is. It's a severe blockage right at the most important area, C1. And I said, I'm going to correct that. The problem is it's been out of position for so long that when I unlock it, it's going to lock up again. So it's going to go through this process that requires time and repetition until we make a permanent change. And I told the mom, I'll move the bone, and God will do the healing. And that you can count on every time. Because there are laws at work. The law of life is what we're talking about. Life flows above down. Every time, no exception. You know what I like about laws? They're constant, reliable. You can count on them. Like there's a law of gravity, right? Like if I take my pair of keys and I let go, which way are they going to go? Every time. Like they're never going to float up. It's always going to go down. Oh, down again? Is it going to go down again? Yep, down again. Down again. Unless something's interfering with it. Now you remove the interference, what happens? Down. Same thing in your body. You remove what interferes with healing and you heal. You remove what interferes with health and you get healthy. But you see, my thing is this little beautiful girl is only 3 years old in her life. The only thing she's known is sickness for 3 years. And it's my job to free her of that because I believe that God put me on this planet to do that. I believe that I was here to be a vessel for God to speak through so that you can get the message today. And the only thing I pray for before I ever speak, wherever I go, wherever I am, wherever God calls me to speak, it don't matter where I go, wherever God calls me, I go. But the only thing I pray for is to be quiet enough so that God can speak through me to you. Because as much as people say, well, Dr. Ray said this, it's not me doing the talking. It's the Holy Spirit coming through me. Now my thing is I get quiet enough and pray enough for that to happen. But I want you to know that, you see, for most people, when they think of a doctor, they think of a doctor giving drugs or doing all these things from the outside in. I'm not interested in outside in stuff. I'm interested in inside out stuff. I'm interested in getting connected to God, getting people connected to God, and delivering them from sickness, and delivering them from asthma, and allergies, and pain, and suffering, and a life of misery. Because if you look at the path most people are on, we take more drugs than any country in the world, but how many people are happy? How many people are healthy? How many people are living the life they deserve? If drugs were going to do it, we'd be there. But we're not. We're the sickest country in the world. And the reason why that is because nobody teaches them how to get their health back. Nobody teaches them why their body's breaking down. And I believe that knowledge is powerful. And if we can take that knowledge and apply it, now we got wisdom. So my job is to make sure that each of you get that opportunity to come into our office, do this exam, get your family checked, see what's happening. See if there's anything interfering with the expression of life or God's power in that body. And let's do something about it so you can express the health that you deserve and be set free of a life of misery, a life of suffering, or hospital visits, or emergency rooms. Because as much as people just hope for things not to happen, if you don't have a plan to get healthy, you got a plan to get sick. And we need to start educating people, the people that we love the most, because you see, I'll tell you, the worst thing in the world is to be heading toward a cliff, driving a car, and not even know there's a cliff up ahead. Oh, I'm completely fine, Doc. It's like, no, there's a cliff up there. Well, you know, I think there's always cliffs. Don't worry about it. And I'm going to come later. You know, that's another one, procrastination, right? Imagine someone heading toward a cliff and they're procrastinating on the way. And you're like, you got to make a turn. Yeah, no, you know, it's not. I got a little time. Don't worry about me. I'm all good, you know. All these kind of things. Crazy, what we call viruses in the mind. The reason people get sick is because they haven't been told the truth. But the other reason people get sick is they don't apply the truth. Isn't that right? Yeah. So we need to do two things. Number one, I got to give you the knowledge. I believe we've done that. Number two, I got to show you how to apply it. But let me tell you a little about Sarah before I do that. This was Sarah's first exam. I checked her, corrected it, checked it, corrected it, checked it, corrected it. 3 months later, I did another exam. The top one is Sarah's exam 3 months later. She got 100% of God's power flowing back into the body. What do you think happened to the asthma and the allergies and the ear infection? What happened to all that stuff? Gone. She was delivered from a life of suffering. Because what would have happened if we kept that? She would have just kept getting sicker. More drugs, more surgery, more imbalances. Brain imbalances, mental imbalances, emotional imbalances, physical imbalances. And that's what we call health, drugging them up. That's what happened to my dad. So you know, his challenge, his experience set forth a calling in my life. Because, you see, I believe God works in mysterious ways, and I also believe that we can take whatever it is that we're going through in our life and learn from it. Whatever symptom, whatever disease that you have going on. Here's the thing, I don't even want to limit this to just you. I want to let you bring your family members, your friends, the people that you love, so they can all get checked. And our gift of being here today is to do that for everyone in this room. Is my gift to you at no charge. My gift is I'm going to give it away. So that nothing interferes with your ability to get checked. Now I'm going to explain to you how it works, because when you come to our office, you're going to do a consultation with one of my associates. They're going to do a full examination on you, and they're going to schedule you to come back to go over your results with me. That's 2 hours with me. We're going to go over exactly what we found on your exam, what's causing any symptom, any condition you have. We're going to share with you what's causing your body to break down and how you can get your body to live life with God's power flowing freely through the body, working the way it was always intended to, so that you can be as healthy and productive in your life that you want to be. We're located in Garden City, Long Island. The good thing about coming to our office is that the majority of people come from all over to come to us. That first and that second visit is my gift not only to you, but also anybody you bring with you, any children, any friends, any family members. But one of the things I came to realize is that this knowledge is so important that if we don't get it out to people, what's going to happen? You're going to get sicker. And so my mission is to get this message to as many people as possible. So if you know people that you're like, I want them to hear this, but I don't know if I can get them to come to the office, that's why we left these yellow forms. This is called a lifesaver list. Anybody want to save a life? Anybody in here want to save a friend's life, make a difference in somebody's life? What you do is you write their name and number on this, and we call and we invite them to a free dinner workshop that I host, a 3-course dinner. And while the food is prepared, I do an inspirational talk about what helped this so they can hear this message too. So they get a 3-course dinner. So they say, Dr. Ray, why do you do that? Well, here's what I found. If you invite them in, some have a lot of questions. But if you invite them for free food, they all show up, no questions asked. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So if you want people to hear that message and you know somewhere else we can speak, let us know. That's what this form is. But I want to go back again and say, for your appointment, you write your name, your number on the white form. You check off any concerns. If you don't see the one you have, don't worry. We're going to address it. On the back, we have certain times set aside. You circle the time. And then underneath, there's some underlines. That lets you know who else you're bringing with you to write their names there so we can better prepare for everybody. A couple of other things I want to share with you. That the greatest gift in life for me, the greatest gift in life is in giving. You guys agree? As you sow, you shall also reap. Yes? You just sow. You sow into the kingdom. I sow into churches. I've been in practice for 17 years. But the greatest gift in life, the greatest thing that makes me fulfilled is seeing God's power at work in somebody's body. Seeing them heal up of whatever injuries they got, whatever drugs that they were taking they no longer need. Watching them as they have pain and suffering, no longer needing that. Coming in smiling for the first time in 20 years. I'll never forget one of my patients, Lainey, came in. When she first came, my front desk was so scared of her because she was miserable. She was diagnosed with this thing called trigeminal neuralgia. She went to dental work and they cut the nerve in her face. And she was in excruciating pain. On a scale from 1 to 10, she described the pain as a scale 1 to 10, it was a 20. She said that had she not had a family, she would have killed herself years ago. And she came in as a last resort. NYU, all the different hospitals, nobody can help her because there's no drug that can help her. They tried giving her everything she needed. She couldn't heal. I said to her, I said, Lainey, God can heal that nerve. She said, no, they told me it can't heal. I said, they told you God can't heal it? And then I showed her a study where they found out that it does heal. Well, anyway, what ended up happening after 8 months, she came in one day with tears in her eyes and I said, what's wrong? And she said, Dr. Ray, In all the years I've been suffering, you in 8 months did more for me than any doctor did in 20 years. I don't understand. How can it be that they just don't know this information? And again, they're not trained on it because they're indoctrinated by pharmaceutical companies. And so our mission in life is to get this message out. So not only do we want to help you and your family, but I want to help the people that need it. So please share the message, because you now know something that is secret to me, that has tremendous value for setting the people free and really getting them to live a life that's worthy of expressing health at 100%. And so what's going to happen is that my team's in the back. You're going to take these over to them. They'll give you some paperwork to our office to save you time. They'll give you map and directions to our office. And I will be in the front here. If you have any specific questions, I'll be here to answer those private questions for you. My team will get everybody scheduled. They're right in the back. You just take over the forms when you're ready to them, and they'll get you scheduled. And I want to thank you guys today for being here and listening and being receptive, because I'll tell you, as much as I get this message out, this is an audience that has ears to hear. You know what I mean by that? It's very important that people be open to receiving the blessings that God gives them. So I appreciate all of you today. Thank you, everybody.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we want to thank you so much, dear Lord, for the day that you brought this young man into this world, and for the gift and talents you are blessing with, and his ability to not be selfish, but to share it with as many people as possible. And because of him, O Lord, many people will be healed. We want to thank you for him. We want to thank you for his team. We pray, dear Lord, that you be with us now. Bless us. We ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.